Apologies for being late, guys. It has been a busy day. So I've been fiddling around with all of this stuff that I have to get ready for a paper that I'm submitting back to a journal. So a journal is a paper, or a journal is like an organization that publishes scientific literature. And I've been having to try and get one of my papers ready to be published all week. And my supervisor's in late tonight, and so that's why I'm late. And I want to apologise. Sorry for being late, guys. 10 minutes late. And I've got a bit of a cough, but we'll try and get around it. So today I was going to try and go through a whole heap of Aussie slang terms that end in IE. IE or Y. Y as well. And so I guess the basic idea will be just to go through as many of these as I can before you guys get bored. If you have any questions that you want to ask during the lesson or you want me to answer at the end of the lesson, then make sure you put them in the box down below here. So if you have questions regarding grammar, regarding Australia, me, English in general, vocab, whatever you want, put those questions in the box here and I'll try and flick through them at the end when I open the whole session up into a Q&A. Also, obviously, when I go through the slang terms today, I'm only going to be saying them. I don't have anything to write them on. So I know that that's annoying, and I know you guys are visual learners quite often, and you like to see the writing. And so after each one of these classes, I download the class off Facebook. I put it on iMovie. And then I'll actually annotate it. So I'll make sure that I put all of the different slang terms that I'll discuss today underneath in sort of like a subtitle with the definition. And this will go on YouTube. So if you guys want to look these words up later, if they go too fast, and you can't see them because I don't type them, and you want to look later on YouTube, they'll be on YouTube. I'll also put it on the podcast. And so you guys can practice this stuff later. You don't have to worry about missing bits and pieces today. So Australian English has a lot of slang terms, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know. A lot of them end with O. You'll have words like arvo, avo, garbo, bottle-o. I'm sure you guys know a lot of those, and if you know some, put them down below as well. Show me which slang terms you know. But we also have a lot of slang terms that end with the sound E. It sounds like E. And a beautiful example of that is Aussie. I'm an Aussie. I'm an Australian, and Aussie is the slang term for Australian. Aussie. I'm an Australian, I'm an Aussie. So these words, they tend to have either IE or Y after them. Sometimes it can be one or the other. Sometimes it's definitely one of them. So in the case of Aussie, you would always use I and E after the word Oz, the first part of Australia. Another thing too to mention about these slang terms is that quite often, if not all the time, words ending in the IE or the Y sound, the E sound, are two syllables. So if we take a word like Australia and we want to turn that into a slang term like Aussie, we've pulled everything except for the very first syllable off, Oz, and then we've just put E on the end. And this happens with everything, like garbo, with all those ones ending in O, garbo, instead of garbage man, it's garbo. All right, so let's get started. You've learnt the first one, Aussie. The second one, Barbie. Barbie, who knows what a Barbie is? I put meat on the Barbie, I might put a snag on the Barbie, I'd have my friends over to have a Barbie with me on the weekend. A Barbie is a barbecue. A barbecue. So we take the first syllable, barb, and we put E on the end. A Barbie. A Barbie. So a barbecue. I'm going to have a barbecue on the weekend. I'm going to have a Barbie on the weekend. What if I said beauty? She's a beauty, mate. That's a real beauty. The new car that you got is an absolute beauty. The new surfboard that you got is a real beauty. I think it's a beauty. A beauty. Beauty we use to describe things. We turn it into like a noun, but it's based on the adjective beautiful. And so we've taken beaut and we've turned it into beauty. But we also sort of changed that T into a D sound, so it sounds like beauty, beauty. This happens quite a lot in English. Beauty. So that's a really good one. If something's beautiful, you can say that it is a beauty. So it goes from beautiful, the adjective, into a noun. It's a beauty. That thing that you got is a beauty. The car is a real beauty, the surfboard's a real beauty, your new PlayStation's a real beauty, the computer you've got is a total beauty, a beauty. What about if I said bevy, a bevy? So you guys can try guessing these. I'll try and give you some example sentences using it and then see if you can guess what this word is short for. Bevy. So I might drink a few bevies at a barbie on the weekends. I love drinking bevies. Bevies are awesome with food. I might have a bevy after work with mates if I go to the pub. I might buy a few bevies from the bottle-o. So exactly, you got it. So it's a beverage meaning a drink, a bevy. So that's an easy one. I love drinking beverages. I love drinking bevies. I might have a few bevies with mates. I might have a bevy. I might have two bevies. So that's another thing. To make it plural, we just put an S on the end. And when it's plural, even if the word has a Y, so like bevy, I would probably spell B-E-V-V-Y. If we turn that into a plural, it's I-E-S. So that's just something to take note of. What about bicky? Bicky. So if I might eat a bicky if I go and visit my nana, my grandmother. I might have some bickies as a treat, as a bit of a snack. I might have bickies with lollies if I go to a party. So what do you guys think a bicky is? A bicky or two bickies? So again, the S goes on the end and it's plural. A bicky. That's it. You're killing it. A biscuit. A bicky is a biscuit. What if I said biggie? So this one's with a G instead of a K sound like bicky. This one's biggie. If I said something's no biggie, what would I be saying? Like if someone drove their car into my car, but it was a very small incident, there was only a little scratch, I could say that's no biggie. That's no problem. It's not an issue. It's not a biggie. What would biggie be short for? And it's two words in this one. So think of me saying it's not a big something. What do you reckon? Exactly, that's it. It's not a big deal. So if someone does something that isn't a real problem, it's not a real issue, I would say it's no biggie. Don't worry about it, mate. It's not a big deal. It's not really a problem. It's no biggie. It's no biggie. Biggie. Here's another one, sort of similar. In sound. Bikey. So I'm driving down the road and I look out my window in my car and two bikies drive past at a crazy speed. I get overtaken by two bikies. I might go to a pub and there'll be a whole gang of bikies out the front wearing leather. They might have piercings and tattoos. The bikies might have their helmets on. They might be pretty rough-looking bikies. No, it's not bicycle, but it's close. It's close. It's the person that rides a bicycle in a gang. We refer to these as bikies. That's it. Bikies. But it's not just any bike rider. It's someone who rides a bike but tends to have tattoos and is involved in a gang. So you would think of those people that not always, but are potentially involved in criminal activity, I would say, Not all of them, but for the most part, that's when you'd be like, oh, watch out. Those guys are bikies. They're dangerous. Be careful of those guys. Those guys are bikies. All right, next one. What about a blowy? A blowy. So imagine that I'm outside in summer. I'm having a barbie. I'm drinking some bevies. Maybe I've got a few friends who are bikies and they've come over. And I'm getting annoyed by all the blowies that are in the air. The blowies are flying around the food. They're flying around my face. They're really annoying. They're looking for liquid. Blowy. And that's it. A blowfly. So again, we've taken the first syllable, blow, and we've just put E on the end. Blow-y. Blowy. One word of warning for this. In fact, you guys are all adults. I assume there's no children watching this, and I hope there's no children watching this. But a blowy can also be slang for a blow job. A blow job, which is the act. I'm not going to describe it. I'm sure you guys will know what it is. If you want to Google it, you can, but it would just be one of those things to be aware of, that people may use it to mean a blow job. That's a sexual act. Anyway, we'll leave it there for now. What about a bookie? A bookie. This is going to be a little more hard, a little more difficult. A bookie is so what's some examples? If I went to the races and I wanted to place some bets, I'd place them with a bookie. With a bookie. I could do that at some fights. If I went to, say, an MMA fight, the people who are taking the bets are what we call bookies. Do you guys know what bookie is short for? This might be a pretty obscure one. I don't think most Australians would get this. I probably wouldn't if I hadn't already looked it up. It's short for a bookkeeper. So someone who keeps the books is someone who keeps the deals, the bets, the deals that you have going on when you place a bet. They keep track of it all. And then after a horse race, after a fight, after a game where bets are involved, they're the ones who then organise, you lost, so we're keeping your money. You won, so we're giving you this money and some extra as well. They're bookkeepers. A bookie. A bookie. What about if I said, and I think you guys will know this one straight away, that I'm about to have brekkie. So I've just woken up, I've gotten up, I've jumped out of bed, and I want to have some brekkie. What's brekkie? Do you guys know what brekkie is? Brekkie. Brekkie is it's a meal. It's a meal that I would have before lunch. Exactly. It's breakfast. And what about if I said, so brekkie was easy. What if I said that my uncle is a tradie and he works as a brickie? Do you guys know what I mean if I say that? So a tradie, that's a certain career, it's a certain area. There are different people who can be tradies. They can work as different things, tradie. And he's working as a brickie. So think of the word brick and think of what job is involved with bricks and what do people do with bricks. If they're building a wall, he's a brickie. So it's a tradesman or tradeswoman, a tradesperson, so a tradie, who lays bricks, or you could say is a brick layer, a brickie. That's a brickie. What about if we start talking about some towns around Australia? Do you guys know where Brizzy is? If I was to say that I wanted to go to Brizzy this weekend for a barbie and maybe a few bevies with my mates, where's Brizzy in Australia? And think of the first syllable, Briz. What city could Brizzy be? That's it. You nailed it. Brisbane. And again, it's that simple rule. We take the first syllable, we turn it, we add the IE or the Y sound on the end, and we make it Brizzy. Brisbane, Brizzy. I think you could probably again spell Brizzy with a Y or with an IE. Totally up to you guys. The weird thing about slang is that because it's so often just spoken and not written, sometimes the spellings change and they're not, necessarily agreed upon. So Brizzy you might spell with a Y or you might spell it with IE, Brizzy. What about a town around, or a suburb around Melbourne called Broady? Broady. Some of you guys would have to probably live in Melbourne to know where this is, but there's a suburb and the nickname for it is Broady. Does anyone know where that is? Broady? Not seeing any comments. Broady is short for broad meadows. Broad meadows. And this is one of those suburbs, yep, someone nailed it, one of those suburbs on the outskirts, so on the outside of Melbourne, where you would see probably bikies. So you might see some bikies having a barbie and having some bevies with their mates on the weekend. All right, the next one. What if I said to you guys that on the weekend I went into the forest and I saw an animal that's called a brumby? What would I be referring to? A brumby. And this one, I think it's not short for anything, it's just the name. It's a slang term that Australians use for a certain introduced animal. The animal has hooves, so it has hooves like a cow, similar shaped feet. It has a short mane, it has a tail. Can you guys think of what this animal could be? A brumby. If I said that the brumby gallops when it runs, what would you guys think it is? No, it's not a kangaroo. It's not a native animal. This one was introduced by Europeans, I believe. So it's a pest species, but it's also found on a farm. It's found on a farm. The nickname that Americans have given these animals in the wild is a mustang. They call them a mustang. Boom! You nailed it. It's a horse. Horses, yes, we call them brumbies, but they're only wild ones. We don't refer to horses on a farm that's someone's pet or someone's loved animal, or even an animal that's used on the farm. It's a wild horse. Exactly, that's it. Eloisa nailed it. A wild horse is a brumby, and unfortunately we have a lot of them, and they're a massive problem in Southeast Australia. They destroy the habitat. All right, now if we move on to an Australian animal, a native marsupial, this is called a brushy. A brushy. So this guy is a mammal. He's a native mammal. They live in trees. They have a tail that's kind of like a brush. So there's lots of fur on it. Can you guys think of what this animal might be? If I said that, for instance, I was walking in the park and I saw some brushies climb up a tree and they were eating the leaves. I saw some brushies running around on the ground and they were eating fruit. Brushies. They're not koalas. These guys, they're closely related, but they're not koalas. And you'll see them in Melbourne. If you go to some of the parks, you'll see them at night running around, eating the grass. These guys have pouches. They are marsupials, but they have a brush-like tail, and that's where their name comes from. So can you think? I've almost given it away there. Brush tail something. A brush tail. What do you reckon? It's brush-tail possum. A brush-tail possum. Yes, Danny got it. Possums. A brush-tail possum is a brushy. And there, again, we've just taken the first syllable and we've removed the rest of the phrase and just added the sound E and turned it into the slang term brushy. Brushy, like brumby, or, well, brumby wasn't like that. Brizzy, Brisbane, Brizzy. That was another example. All right, staying on the theme of animals, guys. If I saw a small bird that was a parrot and I yelled out, hey, look, it's a budgie. What kind of bird is that? What's that short for? Budgie. Budgie. And this is short for an Aboriginal word. A budgie. Budgie. And we actually use this to refer to male speedos. There's a sort of funny slang term. We refer to them as budgie smugglers. Budgie smugglers is a really funny kind of nickname that we give to male speedos because their genitals in the speedos look like this animal crushed up inside their pants. So we call them budgie smugglers. But the animal, a budgie, is a budgerigar. A budgerigar. And this is one of the smallest species of Australian birds. One of the smallest species of Australian parrot, I should say. So these guys actually live in the desert and they live in massive groups. You've probably seen them in pet stores. They're incredibly small little parrots. They're often like yellow, green, blue, really brightly coloured. But yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. What if I said that I was having a bevy at a barbie with some of my mates who were bikies from Brizzy, and they were drinking a Bundy? What would that be? A Bundy. So it's a kind of drink. A Bundy. It's alcoholic. It's a kind of rum from Queensland, and it's made in a town that has the same name as the drink. So this is about halfway between Brisbane and Cairns. And the first syllable is bund. Bund. Can you guys think of what this could be? Bundy. If I was drinking a Bundy, if I might have a Bundy with Coke. You might have some other soft drinks, fizzy drinks, and mix it with Bundy. It's a kind of rum. So Bundy rum is Bundaberg rum, and Bundaberg is a beautiful town in Queensland. I used to actually go there in summer to catch turtles. I used to do turtle trapping as sort of like volunteer work to check on the species in summer. What about if I was eating some chewy? So I'm chewing on some chewy. What would chewy be short for? Can you guys think of it could be flavoured chewy, it might be the brand types. What are some brand names of chewy? Wrigley's, I think Wrigley's Extra is another brand name for chewy. Do you guys know what chewy is short for? Can you think of what chewy could be? Yeah, that's it, chewing gum. Chewing gum. Because you chew it, and because the first part of the word is chew, chewy. Chewy. Chewing gum. We were talking about brickies before and tradies. A brickie being a bricklayer, someone who lays bricks. They put down bricks and build walls, or they build structures with bricks. They're brickies, and they work as tradesmen, and they're called tradies. What would a chippy be? This one's a little harder, but chippies, they work with wood. They might install your kitchen. They might make the cupboards. Can you guys think of what the word chippy could be short for? The kind of job? Man, Eloise has smashed it again. She's getting all of these. Good job. It's a carpenter. A carpenter. I don't know exactly why they call them chippies, although I have a feeling, and you guys have done pretty well here, I have a feeling it's because they work with chipboard. So chipboard is a kind of cheap wood that's fabricated from wood chips, and a chip is like a small piece. So if you put a piece of wood through, say, well, it's probably a chipper or something that breaks the wood apart and turns it into small pieces, and then it gets flattened into chipboard, they often install it as walls. So I imagine that's why they're probably called chippies. What about chocky? I'm eating some chocky, I'm addicted to chocky. I might have a Bundy and Coke with some chocky on the weekends. If I'm eating chocky, what am I eating? It's sweet. There's a lot of sugar in it quite often. It's made with cacao, chocky, chocolate. That's it, chocolate. And so what if I was sitting around the Chrissy tree eating some chocky? What is Chrissy or a Chrissy tree? So I would do this probably in the month of December. Chrissy, I would be getting some prezzies as well. So if I was getting some prezzies during Chrissy, what would those two things be? What is Chrissy? Chrissy is a certain time of year. It's a certain date that we celebrate. What could Chrissy be short for? Chrissy. Chris. Can you guys think of what it could be? What it could be? I'd get a lot of prezzies. They'd usually come in sacks. Yep, that's it. A Christmas tree. And if I was going to get some prezzies at Chrissy, what is a prezzie? What's a prezzie, guys? Maybe I'd get a Barbie as a prezzie. That's it. Brochure got it. Presents. So a prezzie is a present. We've taken prez, added the E sound on. Prezzie. We've taken Chris from Christmas. removed the rest of the word and added E on, and now we have Chrissy. So it's that pattern, guys. The first syllable, and then we just put E on the end, and that's the slang term in Australian English. So, okay, I've just gotten a few prezzies. It turns out one of them's a Barbie. I'm going to have this on the deck. It's Chrissy time. All my mates, all my family are around. We're standing on the deck, so outside on the wooden deck, and we're smoking a ciggy. So what is a ciggy? If I'm smoking a ciggy, if I'm going to have a few ciggies, my mates are addicted to ciggies. What would a ciggy be? A ciggy. So think sig, and then what could the rest of the word be? That's it. Cigarettes. Cigarettes. Simple pattern, isn't it? All right, here we'll get into a few more difficult ones then. You nailed those last ones. So say that I think someone is incredibly smart, I think they're really intelligent, and I say that they're really cluey. He's really cluey. This is actually a short word that we've put a Y on the end. So we've turned a noun in this case, a clue. I'll give you it, a clue. So a clue is kind of like some information that helps you learn something or figure something out, a clue. Can you give me a clue? Like if someone's guessing something, can you give me a clue? It's like a little bit of information that'll help me solve this problem or answer this question. If we say, so that's a noun, and if we say that someone is cluey, we would be saying that they are smart or intelligent. We've turned it into an adjective to explain the person. So it's no longer a noun as in a clue. That's it. It's an adjective. It's explaining that person. It's giving them a trait. So they're cluey. They're clever. That's another way. That'll be another way of thinking about it. Cluey, potentially. But I think it would come from the word clue, C-L-U-E, and we've just put a Y on the end. What about if, okay, it's Chrissy time, I got some bathers as prezzies, and I've decided to go down to the beach. And bathers, another synonym for bathers, another word for bathers, is a slang term that ends with IE, and I call them cozies. So I've gone down to the beach, and I've actually just given it away, haven't I? I've gone down to the beach and I've put my cozies on. My cozies. What do you guys think cozies is short for? So if they're bathers as well, what's another way of saying cozies? Of saying bathers? And if a male was wearing his cozies, which would just be the bottom part, we'd call them budgie smugglers. Sugar Babble's got it. Swimming costume. Or we could call them swimmers, swimwear, bathers, cozies, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways of actually referring to those. Budgie smugglers though, if you use the term budgie smuggler, you're going to get some laughs. Australians love that term, and an example of us using it was on our ex-Prime Minister Tony Abbott. He would always be on TV and in the media at the beach in his underwear, and we'd always be referring to them as, the Prime Minister being in his budgie smugglers. It wasn't a good sight. So what about if I say that I have a dodgy leg, or that I'm walking down a path and the path looks dodgy? Maybe I'm out at night in the city and I think, that alley's really dark. There's some bikies in the alley. It's a bit dodgy. What could dodgy mean? And can you think of any other words to use in place of dodgy? So if I think, I'm not going to go over there, it looks dodgy, or I'm not going to walk down this path, it doesn't look safe, it looks a bit dodgy. That's it. It could be dangerous. Can you think of any other words too that you could use for dodgy? If you could also use this for, say, someone who doesn't look trustworthy. So if they're a car salesman, that's it, not right. If they don't look trustworthy, if they look dangerous, if something looks unsafe, so if I was walking down a road and I thought, I could fall and hurt myself, it looks a bit dodgy, I can call it dodgy. Another word I can use is sketchy, and iffy. All of those words can loosely mean the same thing. A situation can be dodgy, sketchy, and iffy if it's unsafe. A person can be dodgy or sketchy, although I don't know if I would use iffy. Iffy is more like it could go either way. So I would use that more for like if something's unsafe. All right. Oh, you guys will know this one. You guys will know this one. So I'm going to the dunny. I really have to go. I'm going outside to the dunny. What could dunny mean? What could dunny mean? Can you guys think of what a dunny is? Have you heard this one before? This is a classic Australian slang term, a dunny. So maybe I'm on a plane and I have to get up to go to the dunny. That's it. It's a bathroom, a toilet, a dunny. We use this all the time. We use this all the time in Australian English. If we have to go to the toilet, I might say to friends, very informally, I need to go to the dunny. I need to go to the dunny. Marion asks here, can you write the words on the screen? I can't do that at the moment. I have to work out how to. I'll have to get like a whiteboard or something. But after each class, I download the episode, I put it in iMovie, and I make each one of these slang terms subtitles on the bottom so they come up during the video. So you can watch later and write down every single one of these. I'll put it up on the podcast as well, so you can listen later as well while you're walking around. So you can still learn these all later, so don't worry, they'll be around. Let's keep going, guys. What if I put my cold drinks in a cooler? Let's see if you guys can guess what this is. So I'm putting my cold drinks in a box. There's ice in the box. What's the slang term for that thing? So I put beers in there. I put cans of soft drink in there. There's ice in there. I might put some food in there, but mainly it's for drinks. It rhymes with desk. Can you guys think of what this word could be? This thing. It ends with an E sound. So something E, and it rhymes with desk. You got it. And esky, and it's spelt E-S-K-Y. Esky. I'm not sure why. It rhymes though with Eskimo. So the people who live in Northern America in the ice, Eskimo. Maybe it was a brand or something in the past. I'd have to look this up. But an esky is where we put drinks to keep them cold. I think it's a brand name. What if I said that the esky that I just bought to take to a barbie, to have a few bevies, was really exy? It cost me a lot of money because it was exy. What could exy be short for? If something's really exy and it costs a lot of money, it means exy. So think X. What's a word that it could be for? That's it. You nailed it. Expensive. So it's the same deal there. We've just taken the first syllable, removed the rest of the word. We've put a Y on it, and we've made it exy. It's really pricey, really expensive, and that's how we've made that slang term. That's it. You guys got it. You're getting the pattern. What about if my house catches on fire and I have to call up 000 in Australia to get help, and I say, can the fireys come to put the fire out? The fireys. I need 1 or 2 fireys. 1 fiery would be great, but if you could send over a whole truck worth of fireys, that'd be great to put the fire out. What is a fiery, or what are some fireys? Nailed it. Firemen. So maybe I ask these fireys in. Maybe there's some bikies out the front. I ask them in as well. We have a few bevies after they've put the fire out. I tell them to grab some of the bevies out of my esky. Maybe it's Chrissy time. And then afterwards we go outside to play with the footy. What's a footy? Can you guys tell me what a footy is? It's an object used in a game, and the game is also called footy. Footy. Can you guys think of what that might be? And this is primarily played in the southern part of Australia. That's it. Footy is short for football. Football. Same deal. We've just removed the second half of the word, kept the first syllable, put a Y on the end, footy. Footy, footy, footy. All right, going back to animals now. So I'm in northern Queensland and I've gone out into the tropical rainforest. I've gone for a swim in some waterhole, could be a billabong, and all of a sudden I've been bitten by a reptile called a freshie. A freshie. What do you guys think a freshie could be? So fresh, this is the first part of the entire thing's name, and it's actually 2 words, and fresh is the first part of the first word, and then they just get called freshies. So this thing has teeth, it's got skin like leather, it's a reptile. They have close relatives that live further north in Australia that get really big and are really dangerous. And they have big teeth, they lay eggs, and they come up out of the water to breed, but they often are found in the water with their heads at the surface, and you can see their eyes at night. If you shine a torch, you'll see the glow of their eyes. So can you guys think of what a freshie could be? A freshie. That's it. You guessed it. A certain type of crocodile. So Australia has 2 kinds of crocodile. We have saltwater crocodiles and we have freshwater crocodiles. Freshwater, meaning they're only found in water that isn't salty. So inland, away from the beaches. These guys are smaller, whereas the saltwater crocodiles are a lot bigger. And that's what they're called, freshies. I got bitten by a freshie, mate. Luckily, it's not lethal. You'll be fine. Just give him some bevies, put him in an esky, take him home to the barbie, and you could probably cook him up. You could have that freshie for dinner. All right, what are some more? Okay, say that I am relatively feminine and I feel like going out tonight. I might put on some makeup, I might do myself up. If I was to put on some lippy, what could that be? Lippy. So I'm putting it on my lips, obviously, hence the word lippy. And it's definitely the only kind of thing women would wear. I would never wear lippy as a man. I'm not really a fan of lippy, to be honest. That's it. Lippy is short for lipstick. Again, lip, the first part of lipstick. We remove stick, keep the first syllable, put a Y on it. Lippy. Lippy, lippy, lippy. Back to animals. We've got a few animals in a row here. Alright, so I walk outside and I get swooped by a bird called a maggie. A maggie. Do you guys know what a maggie is? What's the full name of a maggie? A maggie. They're black, they're white. Collingwood, which is a footy team, has these guys as their emblem, as their mascot, maggies. And so they're quite often called maggies, although you would use the full term. Yes, that's it. Cross got it. A magpie. Magpie. Maggies. These guys are great, although you want to keep your eyes on them during breeding season when they're laying eggs and protecting their babies, because they'll swoop down and attack you. You've got to be careful. So again, similar to Maggie and similar to blowy, as in it's coming around and flying around your face, a blowfly. A mozzie is another kind of animal that flies and it bites you, it sucks your blood. What do you guys reckon a mozzie is? These guys are horrible. These guys are horrible. No one likes mozzies, especially when they show up and you're trying to have a barbie on your deck or on your balcony with your mates. Maybe the fireys have come over to kick a footy around. That's it. A mozzie is a mosquito. Mosquito. So imagine that you've gotten rid of all these mozzies. They were really annoying you. They're much worse than blowies. You're at the barbie and you're about to put some veggies on the barbie. What do you guys reckon veggies are? What's a veggie? And this is to not be confused with a veggie, which is a vegetarian. So if I eat veggies, I'm a veggie who eats veggies. What's a veggie? Can you guys tell me what a veggie is? That's it, you nailed it. Fabricio got it. Vegetables. Vegetables. You can say a veggie if you want to make it singular. To make it plural, put an S on the end. Veggies. Veggies, veggies, veggies. And a type of veggie is a mushy. A mushy. We might get some mushies, we'll put them on the barbie, we'll roast them up, we'll have some mushies with the rest of our veggies. What do you guys think a mushy is? A mushy. These guys tend to grow in dark places. That's it. Mushrooms. Too easy. Mushrooms. All right, back to careers, jobs, guys, but not tradies this time. If someone's a poly and they're on TV all the time, they give speeches, they're part of the government, what is a poly? What does poly stand for? He's a poly. No one trusts polys. Polys are always lying out their ass, meaning that they're talking out their rear end and they're telling lies. They're not honest. Polys, can you guys tell me what a poly is? Politics is the area that they are in. That's it. Zainab got it. She got it. Politicians. Politicians. A poly is a politician. A poly is a politician. No one trusts polys in Australia. Polys are all liars. All right, so you're a poly, you're living at home, and you're getting your mail delivered by the postie. So can you tell me what a postie would be? Posties tend to get attacked by people's dogs quite a lot. They deliver the mail, they deliver parcels, they deliver anything you may have ordered online. That's it. A postie is a postman. Postman, but it's one word. Postman. We remove man, we put a Y on the end or an IE, and it becomes postie. Postie, postie, postie. What if I said to you that one of my rellies is a postie, or one of my rellies is a poly, or one of my rellies is a fiery? What would relly mean? So I've got a lot of rellies. I've got quite a big family full of rellies. I've got rellies overseas. I've got rellies that live locally. Boom. A relly is a relative. A relly for singular, one relative, and rellies is relatives, so many of them. I've got lots of relatives. I've got lots of rellies. I've got a relly over here, relly over there. You might also hear this as rello, so it could be either kind of slang term. Slang term with an O, or a slang term with a Y or IE. Relly, rello, it's all the same, but you might hear both in that case. So we mentioned before that freshwater crocodiles can be referred to as freshies. So we've taken fresh, we've put IE on the end or a Y on the end, and we've turned it into freshie. So what do you guys reckon the slang term for saltwater crocodile would be? If I told you guys, here's a word, saltwater crocodile, salt water, turn it into an Australian slang term. Can you make this word into a slang term? What would you guys do to it? How would you change it into an Australian slang term with E on the end? What would you do? Two of you just got it? Two of you just got it? That's it. A salty and a freshie. A saltwater crocodile and a freshwater crocodile. Take the first syllable, put the E sound on it, whether it's IE or Y, and you've got the slang term salty. Salty. Okay, I'm going to take a sick day off work. So I'm not feeling well. I'm going to take a sick day off work. We call this day a sickie. A sickie. So I'm feeling sick, so I'm going to pull a sickie. I'm going to have a sickie, meaning I'm going to have a sick day. I'm going to have a day off work. And so in this case, we've made it a noun, a sickie. To pull a sickie, to have a sickie, to take a day off, to take a sickie, it just means to take time off work. We mentioned sketchy before, similar to iffy and dodgy. What about skippy, guys? Do you know what the term skippy is meant for or used to refer to a certain type of animal in Australia? And this is because this animal got this name on a TV show that was called Skippy back in the day. So I'll give you hints about this animal and let's see if you guys can guess what it is. So it's got a long tail, It has 2 arms, 2 feet, 2 legs. It eats grass, so it's herbivorous. That's it. Someone's already guessed it. It lives out in the bush. That's it. Skippy is a kangaroo. Kangaroo, kangaroo, kangaroo. And what's the other slang term for kangaroo, guys? You've probably heard me use this a few times, and some of you have said it down there. That's it. Ruse. Ruse. Good one. You guys are killing it. You already know all this Australian slang. Back to tradies. Imagine that someone's come over to my house to fix the electricity. What would the slang term be if it was an electrician who came over? Do you guys know the slang term for an electrician? So we've talked about people who lay bricks being brickies. We've talked about brickies being tradies. We've talked about chippies. But if you imagine an electrician, what do you guys reckon the slang term for electrician is? That's it. You guys got it. Sparky. They're called sparkies, and it's because a spark is the little flash or the little bit of electricity that comes out if someone crosses some wires over. So it's a spark. And so I'm not sure why we don't call them eleckies. Maybe it doesn't sound as nice, but they're called sparkies. Electricians are called sparkies. So I'm having a few bevies with mates. I'm going to drink some beer, and I'm going to drink the beer out of a stubby. What do you guys think a stubby is? And this is a more obscure slang term with regards to the word that it's I guess that it comes from, because it's not short for something and then had the Y added on. So how would you guys describe what a stubby is? A stubby. Is it made of glass? Is it made of aluminium? Like, is it a can or is it a bottle? Do you guys know what a stubby is? A stubby? So a stubby would be like a short, stout glass bottle. So if you have someone who's long and tall, so like thin and tall, then they're the opposite of stubby. Where if someone's short and stout, meaning they're wide and short, they are stubby. They are stubby, and so we use the word a stubby for a short bottle of beer. What if I said instead of a stubby, I'd prefer as a bevy a tinny? So I might have a tinny. What would you guys think a tinny is? A tinny. And these are the kinds of things where you would go and then drink out of it. What do you think a tinny is? And what do you think tinny is a slang term for? A tinny. So I'd have these at a barbie with mates. Yep, that's it. A can of beer. A can of beer. So it's a tin can. A tin can. And so we take the word tin and add the Y on the end or the IE on the end and say a tinny. So I might have a tin can of beer. I might have a tinny. And the ironic thing is that I think we don't use tin, the metal tin, to make these things anymore. They're made out of aluminiums, but we don't call them alleys. That'd be weird. All right. What if I said to you guys that I'm always wearing these glasses? What would you guys say those things are called? And I wear them when I go outside. I wear them when it's really sunny. So what would a slang term for sunglasses be? Can you guys come up with a word for sunglasses? Can you imagine what that would be in Australian slang? You've probably heard me use it quite a lot, but they're those glasses that I'd wear on my head. That's it. If it's sunny and I go outside, I need to pick up my sunnies and I need to put them on to protect my eyes from the sun. Sunnies, sunny, sunny, sunnies. So I might wear my sunnies if it's particularly bright in Tassie. And Tassie is a state in Australia. And can you guys tell me what Tassie is short for? Which state? Can you imagine that Tassie is a slang term for? Tassie. I might go to Tassie. It tends to be pretty cold in Tassie. There's a lot of mountains in Tassie. There's a lot of rain in Tassie. That's it. It's Tasmania. Tasmania. I might go down there and hit the beach, have some tinnies, have some stubbies with mates. And if I was in Tassie, it was raining a lot and I decided to stay inside and flick on the telly, what am I watching? If I'm watching the telly, what am I watching? So I might watch Home and Away on the telly, I might watch Neighbours on the telly, I might watch some Australian movies on the telly. Maybe if it's really bright inside, I'm wearing my sunnies and having a tinny or a stubby while I watch the telly. That's it. Telly is short for television. Television or TV. Telly, television, TV. If it's really cold, because I'm in Tassie, I might wear my trackies, my tracky dacks, my trackies. What would trackies be short for? And what are trackies? And what's it short for, guys? If I was wearing my trackies, it's a piece of clothing. I'm wearing them inside because it's cold. Is it on the top half of my body or the bottom half of my body? The trackies. The trackies. Come on, you got this. You can get this. That's it. Track pants or tracksuit pants. You could say trousers. Trousers would be more official kind of pants, like jeans or suit pants. Trackies are the ones that tend to be like this material, this really soft. Could be made from silk. It could be made from wool, from cotton, probably synthetic stuff as well. But trackies tend to be very comfortable pants that you would wear when you're feeling lazy, you want to stay inside at home, and they're on the bottom of your body, obviously. If they're pants, they're on the bottom. Someone who drives a truck. So this is their job. This is another job-related one. They drive a truck all day long. So they drive a truck interstate. They might drive it from one city to another. They might go to Brizzy. They might drive all the way down to Tassie. A lot of bikies might pass them. Can you guys think of what word I would use for someone who drives a truck? So what would we do to the word truck? Truck. What would we add to the end of it? That's it. Trucky. Trucky, trucky, trucky. All right, we're getting close. There's only 5 left here, guys, and you've actually 4. We've got 4 left, and then I might open it up for questions for you guys. So imagine a truckie or a bikie are driving along, and they need to make a 180-degree turn, something that we would call officially a U-turn. But if we wanted to make a U-turn, we do 180 degrees. What would the slang term be for a U-turn? So you're doing a 180-degree turn, you're going to pull a U-turn, you're going to do a U-turn, you're going to make a U-turn. What do you guys think the slang term would be for a U-turn? That's it, a Yui. Given got it, a Yui. Underneath my trackies, what do I wear? So the long term for this would be underwear under my trackies. They're called underwear because I wear them under my pants, trousers, trackies. What would the slang term for underwear be, do you think, guys? So underwear. Under. What would the slang term be for underwear? Underwear. And this is always plural. So I always make sure that I have plenty of underwear. I put my underwear on after a shower, but what would the slang term be for underwear? Underwear. And it's just the first syllable, and it has to be plural because we refer, I don't know why, that's a weird one. Undies, we'd call them undies. It always has to be plural though if it's undies. We wouldn't say undie. Undies, we call them undies. If I'm going to university, what would the slang term for university be? So I've got some classes at university. I'm learning French at university. Maybe I'm partying there. We're having a barbie, bevies, stubbies, tinnies, and that's it. We'd refer to university as uni. Uni. All right, we're getting the last 2. So I have to take my bin out, and my bin has wheels on it. I'm taking my bin out onto the road. It's full of trash. What would I refer to the bin as? If I'm pulling it out onto the road and it's a wheel bin, what would I change the first word to if it's a wheel bin? Wheel bin. So I have to take this out. It's got wheels on it. I put recycling in it. I put garbage, trash, junk in it. It's referred to as a wheelie bin. Wheelie bin. It's a funny word. The last one is a slang term for the, what would you call this? Chain of supermarkets called Woolworths. 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 And we have a slang term for these guys. So this should be the last one, it should be incredibly easy. If you were going to make a slang term up for the supermarket Woolworths, what would you call it? That's it. Woolies. Woolies. Jason got it. I'm going to go to Woolies, or you might go to Coles, and you might buy some stuff. You might get some groceries, you might get some tinnies, some veggies, you might go to a Barbie after, you might buy some prezzies for Chrissy. I can't even think. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be able to find some salties or some freshies if you want to eat some kangaroos. You might get some undies there. You might buy trackies there. Maybe you get your lippy there. Hopefully when you leave the supermarket, when you leave Woolies, you don't run into any mozzies, into any blowies, into any maggies. I don't know. There's so many we went over today, guys. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I'm running out of battery, but I will try and answer some questions if you guys have any that you would like to ask. Feel free to shoot. And when I say shoot, it's like go for it. Give me some questions, guys. Anything you want to ask me about English, about Australia, about me. It's trouble me asking you guys so many questions, and what things are is that the comments are all one words. What is it? Do you have a board to write some of the words on? Not today. There's one here, but it's a bit late now. There's one over in the corner. How can I improve my pronunciation, asks Prince. Prince, I would suggest that if you want to improve your pronunciation, obviously first you've got to speak a lot. So every chance that you get to speak English, I would suggest that you do it. Secondly, I would say ask people to correct you. Don't just wait for people to misunderstand something or mishear something and then ask, what do you mean? But if you know the people relatively well, and it's not like a situation where you've got to be very quick, like if you're buying something, you can't really say, can I practice my English with you while I buy this from you over 30 seconds? But I would ask people that I know. I would always say, can you please just correct me if you have time or the patience? Can you correct my pronunciation if that's what you want to work on then and there? Aside from that, a trick that really works for me is practicing on my own. So, for instance, okay, I want to practice how to say for instance or for instance. I don't know how to really say it. I might look it up. I might look it up online. I might hear someone say it, and then I'll repeat again and again and again. For instance, for instance, for instance, for instance, for instance, like I get the feeling of what it's like in my mouth, and I do that again and again and again with things that I'm going to say all the time. So if I want to say things like, how are you going? But I know it doesn't sound like, how are you going? I would sit down after I hear people saying it and then practice saying, how were you going? And especially that connected flow of a language. So I would sit there, I do this with French, Spanish and Portuguese at the moment, where I sit there and actively think all the time when I'm practicing these sentences, how do I better push the words together to make it flow? To really speak with clear pronunciation, but at the same time to speak more naturally, because you sound like a robot if you split things up. So that's another thing. If you're unsure, try and find it online or find examples on TV, in audiobooks. Hear people repeat as well. If you're on your own and you're listening or you're watching something on TV and you hear someone say something and you're like, oh, that's a good line, I might pause and then practice my pronunciation. I guess the main thing though is just do as much as you can on your own. That's the biggest thing that a lot of people face when they're not in a country that speaks English. I don't know where you live, But if they're not in the country where that language is spoken, they often listen, they read, they watch, they write, but they don't speak. They don't speak because, one, they're nervous around other people, which is partly because they don't do it enough anyway. And two, they think I don't need to because I'm not around other people. So if I'm alone, why would I use English? This is the perfect time to be practicing, guys. I do this all the time. If you're on your own and you want to practice English, especially if you're having it, projected towards you, if you're listening to it or you're watching it, repeat, repeat, repeat. And your pronunciation will actually really improve despite there being no one around, despite you being on your own, despite you being alone. The more you use your mouth, like the more push-ups you do, the better you get, And you don't need to do push-ups against someone else. You get to do them alone and you build up that muscle. Anyway, I hope that helps, mate. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? How usual is using too much Aussie slang in the work environment? I think that's a good question. That's a really good question, Rocio. I think I wouldn't go overboard with it. Firstly, I would learn, if it were me and I was learning Australian slang like this, firstly, I would become aware of these words. I wouldn't necessarily try and use them, especially in work environments, when I begin. I might use them with friends and try them out. I might test them out. I might see, if I use this word, is this correct? If I use this word like this, is it rude? Is it okay? How would you use this word? I might play around. I might ask my friends all the time, can I use this here? Can I use this here? And then when I become comfortable with understanding how that word is used, then I'll be like, okay, if I'm at work and I have a relatively good relationship with the people I'm working with, or I hear them using it, then I'll use it. I wouldn't just look up these words online and then dive straight into just throwing them out there. Especially words like, for instance, blowy. A blowy can be a blowfly, as we said at the start, but it can also be slang for something very rude, which is a blow job, a sexual act. And so you're not necessarily going to get in trouble, but it could lead to an awkward misunderstanding if you were to use that in the wrong context. Say if you were in a meeting and for whatever reason you wanted to talk about a blowfly and you said blowy, it could just lead to an awkward situation. So my takeaway would be, my takeaway message and point, look up all these words, understand what they are, become sort of acclimated to how they're used by practicing with friends on your own, and then only when you become really comfortable with, I know what this word means and how it's used, it's going to be fine, and I have a pretty good relationship with the people at work, that's when I'd be like, okay, I'm comfortable using it in this situation. So I hope that helps. And I guess the last point would be, I think slang-wise, go by the rule of one slang word per sentence. If you start packing too many slang words all into the one sentence, like when I was saying there before, yeah, I might go to the barbie that my mate's having, bring some bikies, fireys will be there, might have some tinnies, it gets too much. It gets too much. So I would say one rule to try and apply by, to try and abide by, would be one slang term per sentence. One. Give it a go. So I might see if I can answer some more. Why don't you have a go at teaching intonation? I will at some point, but it's a little, I have to work out how I could do that in these live classes. But it's a good question, Mohammed. I'll try and do that. I do that in private lessons with some of my students because I know how important intonation is, but keep at it, guys, keep at it. What do you say when another person sneezes? Bless you. I would say bless you, bless you. It might even sound like bless you, bless you, bless you. But bless you is the go-to. That is something that everyone would use everywhere in the English-speaking world. If someone sneezes, achoo, you would say, oh, bless you. How can I enhance and upgrade my spelling and make my writing good? Abbas, the only way you can do this is by doing more. Write as much as possible and have people correct it. So you can go online to certain websites. I'm not sure if it works anymore. One website is called Lang 8. So like lang from language, and then the number 8. You can go on there, or at least you could back in the day, and you could upload your own writing to be corrected by natives that were learning your language. So I would do that, and then I would look for any spelling mistakes and then practice them, or any grammar mistakes and then practice them. Another trick for you guys would be to use Word, the program on your computer, and change the language to English. Australian English, British English, American English, whichever one you're learning and you want to practice, change the language there and then write. And you'll get the little squiggly lines with red if you've spelt something incorrectly. So you try that with Word. Set the language to English. There's also things like programs called Grammarly, I think you can download, and that will actually correct your grammar. So it's a program you can use, I think, either on a web page or on Word, and it will actively correct any grammatical errors that you make. But Word is free. You'll have it on every computer. Change the language to English. It should be under the options box at the top. So I hope that helps, mate. Which is correct? With regards to or with regard to? I think you could use both, Pillar. I would say, if someone said, what do you think of this? I could say, oh, with regards to this. Or you might hear with regard to this. Yeah, I would be more inclined to say with regards to. So I would use the S on regards. Although I think with regard to would be used as well. It feels like one of those situations where I'm more used to hearing with regards to, with the S in there. With regards to. What's your favourite Aussie slang and why? I think one of my favourite ones, mate, is budgie smuggler. Just because it's funny. I'm an Australian, I have a bit of a sense of humour. I think that slang that can make people laugh is really funny, especially when it kind of has, I guess, a bit of a naughty side to it. Budgie smuggler would be my favourite. Budgie smugglers are Speedos or bathers that are kind of like underwear. And they're called budgie smugglers when men wear them because their genitals look like someone has put a budgie into their underwear. So a budgie was that small bird. So if you do a search for budgie smugglers, and to smuggle something is to like take it somewhere it shouldn't be. So if you smuggled an animal, you put a budgie into your jumper and you took it on a plane to take it somewhere and sell it. That's to smuggle something overseas. So if you've got a bird in your pants and you're smuggling it somewhere, then yeah, that's the basic idea of budgie smugglers. But I think that's one of my favourite ones. I find that really funny. What's the meaning of douchebag? So douchebag, I don't know how to explain this one. This is kind of rude, but I would just use it. You can look up what douchebag is. I would look that up online. It's a feminine hygiene thing that you can look up online, but I would use it to refer to someone who's an idiot, it's not necessarily that they're the most horrible or, it's not a really, really rude comment, but I would use it for someone I didn't like. Someone I thought was an idiot, a bit of a moron. I might say that guy's a bit of a douchebag. He's a real douchebag. But it's actually quite vulgar when you look up what a douchebag is. But that's an example where we would use douchebag but not actually be thinking of what a douchebag actually is literally. G'day guys, thanks for watching the video. Remember, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so via my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. If you can't afford to support the channel financially, you can still help by spreading the word and sharing the videos. Thanks so much guys, stay awesome, all the best.